Hello YouTube, welcome to my first talking video. This is pretty new for me, so let's see if we can make it work. Today I wanted to share with you a bit of a show and tell of a lovely new piece of gear that I've just picked up. I'd like to introduce you to the lovely Wes Audio Timbre Vari-mu compressor. The Timbre is based on the Gates STA-level. The compressor has relatively simple controls, with the amount of compression being controlled by the input and output knobs. The attack and release settings are a little different to what you might find on other compressors. The release setting is relatively simple, with 6 options going from slow to fast, doing basically exactly what it says on the tin. Where the compressor gets interesting is the modes knob. There are 3 modes, single, double, and triple, and the modes affect a couple of different parameters. In single mode, the attack time is at its slowest and the release range is also at its slowest. As you move into the double and triple modes, the attack time and release ranges speed up. In addition to the attack and release time changes, there's also some program-dependent behavior that gets introduced, meaning the compressor will react differently depending on the transient content of the sources. Although, if I'm to be honest, I don't fully understand this myself, so maybe this is worth looking at in a future video, we'll see. Finally, the compressor has a sidechain filter that can be switched in and out, a bypass button, which allows you to bypass compression, and a link button, which allows you to link 2 of the timbres with a mono TS cable, so you can essentially operate the 2 units as a single stereo unit. To give you an idea of what this compressor sounds like, I've prepared 3 different sources for us to have a listen to. First, let's have a listen to how this sounds on snare top. For this sound, I've used the bell brass sample from the GTD P4 library. Let's have a listen. So to me, single mode, what I'm getting is pretty thick transients and a relatively short sustain. There's not really a lot of that snare wire being brought up. When we get into the double mode, I'm getting much snappier transients and much more sustain. And then when we get to the triple, not as much transient at all and a very long sustain, lots of that snare wire being brought up. On snare, I'm currently leaning towards the single mode, although having the triple mode blended in parallel to get some of the sustain from the snare wires to blend with that punchy transient of the single mode might be a winning combination. For our second sound, let's see what this compressor can do if you want to smash some rooms. Once again, the room sounds are courtesy of the GTD P4 library. Sadly, I only have 1 of these compressors, so I can't use the stereo linking functionality built into the unit. So I had to process the left and right channels of the room individually. Anyway, let's have a listen. Already, the raw tracks for the room sound great. I usually like to really thoroughly compress my rooms to exaggerate the sustain, trying to achieve that explosive sound. I really like how much bigger the rooms sound and how much body you can bring up. The multi-mono setup does mean the stereo image isn't perfect and certain pieces can move around a little bit in the stereo field, but I don't find that to be much of a problem. Most of the time when I'm recording rooms, I'm looking more for size and space, and I can get most of my stereo placement from the close mics and overhead, so I'm not too worried about that. Finally, let's have a look at what this compressor can do with vocals. The vocals were provided by Emma Lauren. They were recorded using a Telefunken AR51 into a Warm Audio 73 preamp. They were recorded for a cover that we're hopefully going to be releasing soon. I've added a touch of de-essing just to tame the sibilance a little bit. Other than that, the vocal has no further processing, no EQ or compression. Let's have a listen.
Don't wanna be sly and defile you, desecrate my mind and rely on you. I just wanna break this crown. Don't wanna be sly and defile you, desecrate my mind and rely on you. I just wanna break this crown. Don't wanna be sly and defile you, desecrate my mind and rely on you. I just wanna break this crown. Don't wanna be sly and defile you, desecrate my mind and rely on you. I just wanna break this crown.
To me, the single mode really exaggerates the note onset and it adds a lot of energy to the vocal. This could be great in a heavier style of music to really exaggerate some of the aggression in the vocals, but in a style like this, just brings a lot of energy. As far as I'm concerned, the double mode is kind of what I would be looking to use on this vocal. It makes the vocal really nice, present, in your face and up front, very good at keeping the vocal from getting buried in the mix. You can definitely hear with the triple mode that it's starting to impart some color onto the vocal. There's no shortage of character in this compressor at all, and this is really starting to highlight it. Although there is a bit of saturation, a bit of color, I'd say it's probably still quite usable. Maybe not for this mix, but in another style, absolutely. And finally, the blasted vocal. There's a huge amount of compression. This is definitely a lot of saturation, definitely a lot of color, but it's still quite usable, and in the right mix, in the right context, this could work really, really nicely, which is quite cool. To my ear, the timbre is not a transparent compressor. Once you start cranking that gain reduction, you can really hear that character of the compressor coming through. I'm finding that I'm generally really liking the color that the compressor is imparting, and I'm also pleasantly surprised by how usable the compressor is, even when it's doing 20, 30, 40 decibels of gain reduction. But what do you think? Maybe you can let me know what sounds you like best in the comments, and if you like the video, there's a button for that I've heard, so I'll leave that to you. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.